If you have an enterprise workload, any applications, database, web applications, custom built application, your homegrown, or any ERP packaged apps, and you're looking for how to migrate this workload to any cloud provider or any or cloud provider, from where you will start. That's what we are going to discuss today.
Welcome to the OTech Talks podcast, where it's all about working on technologies. You will hear the latest tech information, and your host, Kashif Manzoor, brings together product overviews, how-tos, best practices, tips and tricks, and troubleshooting techniques.
Welcome to the Open Tech Talks, and this is session number 91. And your host, Kashif Manzoor, is with you to have the session on how to migrate or how to choose which workload, which application, which database need to be migrated to any cloud provider. That's the topic which we're going to cover today. And this will be covered in three key stages or key three phases. What is the important role which you need to have during your migration process? And which enterprise workloads to migrate? Identification of the right workloads, applications, database, etc. And what you need to have from a data point of view, from an inventory point of view, to select which workload is the right candidate now. So these three areas we are going to cover in today's session. Podcast, OTech Talk Podcast. Welcome to Open Tech Talks. This is a weekly sandbox for your technology insights, experimentation, and inspiration with the primary objective of learning and sharing. Welcome to the show. And if you have observed from last couple of weeks, what we were doing, we were covering the audio series on to learn about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Basics or Essentials of OCI. In that, we have covered 7 sessions. In those 7 plus 1, 8 as a practical work. But we have covered the infrastructure basics, networking overview, then networking scenarios, how to secure your network, what are the VNets, private IP addresses, DNS, DHCP options. So all those areas we have discussed in 8-part series. So if you want to learn or you want to start from that, you should go to otechtalks.tv/podcast, and in that you will find an audio series on learning the essentials of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Now we will come back to our session of the day, which is topic of the day, which is where to start, which workload, which application I need to migrate to any cloud provider. It's Oracle Cloud, it's Google, AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Alibaba, or any other local cloud provider or hosting provider you have. But primarily it's a cloud provider, public cloud providers. So we will cover our topic of today. So let's start. Welcome again. Now the key question, as a cloud architect, and what I used to say to or think about myself, and I'm a strongest believer on that angle, and that's why I do this podcast and all these blogs. It's all about social learning, that I'm learning with all my community folks, or with you guys, with all of you who are on the journey of learning and sharing with me. And I have already spent quite considerable time on sharing and analyzing and discussing what we should be learning and what are the key areas in our career or in our jobs. We will be focusing on it. That's why I primarily cover 3 key areas: digital transformation, Oracle in technology, which is my day-to-day job, and then AI or machine learning or data science, which is why I'm doing it. That's also future, and I'm also a student of MSc Artificial Intelligence. These three key areas we covered. And just to reiterate, it's a disclaimer. These are all my personal views, opinions, based on personal, reading or practice. It's nothing to do or not linked to my current or previous employers and their customers and all that. That's just a formal, from a disclaimer statement point of view. Now let's. So as a cloud architect and a lifelong learner, I spend my days working with different organizations to assist them in achieving business goals with the help of technology. Now, what does this stands for me? That I work with customers to help them, to assist them on the cloud architectures or the hybrid architectures where they are moving their enterprise workloads to the cloud. And these workloads where it makes sense and where it provides values to organization that's why we are doing it, right? Or any organization is doing it. Now, the IT infrastructure or the right IT infrastructure or which is the right application is varies, right? I think is vary from an organization's business point of view, requirement point of view, and what objective they have. So we are not dictating which application or ERP or supply chain or a web application or e-commerce you need to do or ordering management solution you need to go. We're talking about, in a nutshell, as an IT organization or as a customer, you could have a public cloud, or you could have a private cloud, which is on-premise or traditional IT environments, which we were doing it 15 years back, or even till now. That we have our own data centers on-premise. And if I recall my own experience, frankly, back in 2007 and 8 and 9, when cloud worlds were very, very new to the world, what we used to do in the organization where I was working in a partner organization, that we used to take the space in different data centers, and we used to provide the managed services contracts, managed services to different customers. So we used to have a cage in different data centers. We rented it, and then we just migrate all the servers, compute applications, exchange everything to those data centers, and then we as an IT organizations were managing it. So if you ask me, I was standing in those data centers days and nights when freezing and cold data centers to cross, and you get access to your cage, and then when we were doing all the work over there. So that at 2007, 8, 9, I think till 10 we were doing it. So that's the similar concept when it comes to public cloud, that they're giving you the data center, they build the data centers and then tenancy and putting the servers in that one. So, but the model has changed, right? SaaS, PaaS, platform as a service, as infrastructure as a services, and all that. So that's to transform the whole ecosystem of that. So that's to transform the whole ecosystem of IT. Now, if we will refer to the IDG Cloud Computing Survey of 2020. And why I'm talking this one, because that gives us context on. And this, 2020 Cloud Computing Study from IDG, what it gives us, that the result of this study shows that 81% of organizations have at least one application or portion of their computing infrastructure in the cloud, which is up from 73% in 2018. And I will put this 2020 cloud computing study in the show notes so you can access it. So the key findings are 92% of organizations' IT environment is at least somewhat in the cloud today, as only 8% say their total IT environment is all on-premises. So 92% organizations, somehow they have something in the public cloud. There are dollars to be spent on cloud tools as a close to 1/3, 32% of total IT budget will be allocated to cloud computing within the next year. cloud-first applications may become more prevalent over time. Currently, 46% of organizations' cloud-based applications were purpose-built for the cloud, as 54% moved from on-premise environment. See the context, that's how organizations are moving it. More than half, 55% of organizations currently use multiple public clouds, with 21% saying they use 3 or more. So you can imagine. So now the biggest challenge to IT technology decision makers, which are, project managers, application administrators, CIOs, IT heads, the biggest challenge they face when it comes to the ability to take full advantage of their public cloud resources are controlling cloud costs and data privacy and security challenges. So these are the key findings from 2020 cloud computing study from IDG. Now, if we continue our discussion on this one, so it's mean cloud adoption has become integral to IT optimization and driving business forward with the increased use of cloud technologies. Moving to the cloud enables firms or organizations to be more agile, remove inefficiencies, and provide required customer employee experiences. That's what any organization is looking for, that their IT infrastructure should be supporting the situation. And if you take an example of the era we are living in, COVID-19 from last 1.5 years, and we were forced to move to homes, working remotely. So all these things or pandemic required organizations, their IT infrastructure to be supporting this pandemic, right? And that's how this happened which organization was able to lead that were having more advanced or more up-to-date infrastructure, right? They were able to give the support and the functions to the employees so that they can work remotely. So now moving to the cloud enables firms, right, to be more agile, remove inefficiencies, and provide required customer and employee experiences. So migration of on-premises enterprise workload to the public cloud has reached the situation of being considered as best practice. So you see, organization want to have a best practice. So that's what it stands right now. That organizations, 92% of organizations are already started moving some of their application, database, or anything is infrastructure to cloud. So that's started giving you a context or a sense of that it's a best practice. These workload migrations still giving a challenge to traditionally run IT organizations, which we used to do it as everything on premise. Right now, it's no longer moving to the cloud is just selecting your favorite cloud provider. Let's keep in mind. And then, magic will be revealed that you just need to select the cloud provider and that's it. You and your organization have to face the challenge of making the right choices. When we say these right choices, what are those right choices? Which enterprise workload needs to be migrated to the cloud? What skills are required to run the cloud? Right? How will you build a team today and in the future to manage this cloud? What services will be available when business need them? And which you can off, which when the business don't require it. So some critical factors have to be kept aligned or on top of the list when deciding on the architecture. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to mention what points I keep in mind while suggesting an architecture of enterprise workload migration to different customers, different organizations. Right, that's the topic of today, which I'm going to focus on it. So first point which we need to have the workload migration architect role, an enterprise architect role focusing on. So that's the role which we need it. Now in this role, what we expect that he will assist selecting the correct initial workload which is aligned to the business objective and to the cloud adoption strategy of an organization. responsible for planning and successful completion of the migration. That's another important task. Okay, you have selected it or according to your adoption strategy, and then he must ensure the completion of that one. Then another couple of questions. What will be the data migration strategy? What are the cloud solution requirements which I'm going to move? What are the migration priorities? How will the production switchover work or happen? Are there any refactoring needs to be for the nominated workload? All these are common questions which need to be addressed. And the enterprise architect or workload architect is a guy or a girl who will make sure that he is on top of all these points. Now you need to have this role. Second point, which enterprise workload to migrate? So identification of the right workload or applications. Now, which application, which infrastructure you need to move. Broadly, or what is happening, that workload migration is being considered as like an application centric, because primarily you are moving the workload from applications point of view, right? Although it has a database, infrastructure, operating system, everything, but it comes from like either you have an e-commerce store or you have a customer experience work, any application or a ERP or HCM or any custom built one. So it's application centric. Now we understand that all the applications are not cloud friendly. Few are best fit to run on-premise or in a hybrid cloud than on the public cloud, right? Few will require tweaking, adjustment, and others will lead to a significant code change enhancements. So these are common reasons for different applications. So now moving on-premise applications workloads to cloud environments correctly, then if you want to do it correctly, then it must adhere some multi-stage method, and which is it will enable you to avoid architecture complexity and the migration challenges. Now, if we talk about first stage, in the first stage, what we need to understand and make sure application software compatibility. We should have a reference architecture. If it's some vendor built application ERP, then it should have like an Oracle ERP or SAP or any other. Application workload characteristics. What are the application workload characteristics? Platform dependencies, on which platform it is running or it need to run. So now identifying the right target application and getting all the questions of software, architecture, application dependencies, platform. What we need to do here, we need to find the answers to which applications workload can be moved as is, which is commonly known as lift and shift. Which applications workload will require a redesign and what level of complexity for this redesigning? Does the cloud provider provides any additional offering that allow migration without reconfiguring application workloads? Is it aligned with my cloud strategy? And what business benefits I'm going to get out of it? How long will it take me to migrate applications workload? Or is it right time of the year or a month or a quarter? Is it cost effective? If I'm going to do this one, what are the benefits I'm going to get? Okay, one is business benefits, but another important point is from the cost point of view. So these are the questions which we need to find out from where to start. So till now what we did, we assigned a workload architect. We have done some work on identification of the right workload. Then to identify, we need to have the correct data of the selected workload. Or maybe even we need all this data before to even which will enable us to take a decision that this workload can migrate. And it's the most crucial point, and what I'm seeing is the most neglected part. So even the decision is made before getting any data or any inventory or any information about the workload that I'm going to move this workload. So to avoid this one, you must have critical data on existing workloads and whatever that is. While you're trying to get the correct data, you need to focus on some of the vital areas. Now those areas, server instance inventory, gather information on machine, hardware, OS type, and any other characteristics. Then that will enable you to get the clear baseline. Then dependency information. Gather server application dependency details, including all constraints, complexity, setup target, or what will be the setup on target applications, all the information. Capturing hardware utilization. Gather server utilization matrices to decide mapping with the cloud resources, because this is also important. How we are going to decide, right? For a hardware utilization point of view. A few of the I think very important and questions which require your attention, and those are described in the paper presented during IEEE conference, and I'm just copying as it is, and I will put it in the show notes. Will the workload run in the target cloud environment? For example, compatible infrastructure, middleware, and operating system image. Will the target cloud environment satisfy performance, availability, and other non-functional requirements? Right. Will the target cloud environment comply with applicable security, privacy, and regulatory requirements? Will benefits be realized from migration? For example, lower ongoing operating costs or increased flexibility and responsiveness. So all these are the 4 key areas, according to the paper presented, you need to keep in mind. Right. So if we will summarize our today's discussion, which will enable us to select the right candidate or the right workload which we are going to move to, or any cloud provider, right? So now, as a conclusion, what I believe, out of all these activities will enable you to arrive at the right selected workload. It could be any web application or e-commerce store application, or business intelligence, or a data warehouse, right? Or a ERP, supply chain, or HCM, or any your niche application which is developed, or vertical applications, or custom applications you have, or maybe any other infrastructure, or an exchange you want to move, or a network you need to readjust everything, right? So all these areas, or maybe you need to move these applications to any SaaS cloud provider. So all these are the questions will get you answer once you will do all these set of activities. So you will have a right candidate for the cloud migration. And you will also get answers to what will be the cost to achieve this and what will be the impact of migration. Right. So that's what we are going to target. We are going to get out of this one. Now, what I will do based on this. So what we did is like where to start for a workload identification point of view. In the next episode or the next podcast, what we'll do, we'll cover what are the common cloud migration types or approaches are being used, like lift and shift, or replace, or rip, or remove, or improve, or entirely. So those are some of the approaches which are being industry-wise are discussed. So those we will cover that, so that we will decide based on these approaches that how the application is going to migrated. Right. So with this, I think our today's topic is covered. So thank you so much for joining. Now I hope that this article and this session will enable you to take the right call, that which workload I'm going to move, or I'm going to suggest in my organization that is a fit to migrate or move to, or lift and shift to any cloud provider. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful.
Thanks for listening to the OTech Talks podcast, and be part of Tech Talks at otechtalks.tv. It's a turf to share ideas, insights, and innovations.